In this video, I'm going to be demonstrating how the Natural History Museum can be configured in with other modular buildings of the series. And at the end of the video, I hope to determine an ideal layout for my own city. There are a total of 11 other modulars that I'm going to experiment with, which consists of the Parisian Restaurant, Assembly Square, Downtown Diner, the Pet Shop, the Bookshop, the Brick Bank, Palace Cinema, the Detective's Office, the Jazz Club, the Boutique Hotel, and the Police Station. The first configuration I'm going to try out is the one presented on the back of the box. So, we've got the Boutique Hotel on the right and the Jazz Club on the left. Now, I think this makes sense. The hotel being in this part of the city where it has easy access to the museum in the daytime and Jazz Club at nighttime for late night entertainment. And I think this works pretty well. Especially, I like the breathing room that the hotel has next to the museum on the right here. And on the left, well, since the pizza shop is a bit smaller than the Jazz Club itself, I think even though it's crammed in there, it looks good. It has different layers of depth between all these buildings. I'm going to pull an Uno Reverso and swap the two ends. Here's what the reverse looks like, but I'm going to tell you right off the bat, this is not going to work for me. For example, I don't like the discontinuity of the light gray striping between the Jazz Club and the museum. And then over on the other side, the Boutique Hotel has some odd colors revealed and showing. So perhaps our LEGO designer there shouldn't be washing the windows of the museum, but rather painting the side of the Boutique Hotel. Yeah, this configuration would probably look better if you had alleyways, roadways, or even some grass separating each modular. And I'm going to do that later in this video. But for now, let's take a look at how the police station looks next to the museum. And if you checked out my video on the comparison of all four of these, you'll know that I've made a lot of negative comments toward the Jazz Club, so let's get rid of that one. With the police station flanking the right side of the museum, I think it looks okay. Now there is a breakup in the light gray lines again, but it doesn't bother me for some reason in this configuration as much as it did with the Jazz Club. And I kind of like the difference in depths from the museum to the donut shop. There's multiple steps towards the camera here and all the way to the police station, so it adds interest. But still, this is a bit unsightly, so let's get these swapped around. So let me just make one thing clear. I'm not doing any modifications to these modulars. Sure, you can mod the sidewalk to your own likings, make it transition better, but I'm just comparing them as is. And as is, the police station transitions very well on the left side of the museum. I even like the news station, how it's tucked in between these two tall buildings. And the part of the police station that is the sand green color is nicely tucked away in between the buildings. I think it looks cool. And of course, the hotel looks good on the right. We've seen enough of the hotel for now, so let's replace it with a fan favorite, the Parisian Restaurant. This doesn't look as bad as I thought it was going to. I thought with the two olive green buildings, they would blend in too much, but that's really not the case. It does blend in a little bit, but not a lot of olive green is shown on the facade of the restaurant. So I think it has enough difference in colors and character that kind of separate it from the museum. Now, what is bad about whatever I place on the right side of the museum, I'm going to have this gap. So I tried to do everything I could to push them together, but whatever I do doesn't work because Look, you can see the roof hitting here, but the gap increases as you go towards the street, the base. And that's because of plate tolerancing. So I've got longer plates on top that are making these structures hit. I just thought of something brilliant that probably no one would ever figure out. What if you put pins into these holes and then connect them? Will that eliminate our gap at street level? Well, it closed it in a little bit, but still not perfect. There goes my $1 million idea. The next thing I'm going to try is moving the Parisian restaurant to the left side of the museum and adding the brick bank to the right. This doesn't look bad at all to me. Yes, I would prefer separation between the museum and brick bank, but we'll experiment more with that a little bit later. However, this side looks excellent because you've got this breathing room between the two buildings. And I think it's really cool that they've got that staircase going right up to an outdoor eating area. And in case you were wondering how it looked like from the backside, well, here it is. What do we got here? Believe it or not, that is the brick bank. The museum looks much better from the back than the bank, and the Parisian restaurant even better. The arrangement I have here is with the Palace Cinema on the right and the brick bank on the left just rotated 90 degrees. So we've got two corner modulars flanking the museum, and I think it looks pretty good. I really have no complaints. I think they transition interestingly enough. Now I've got the Palace Cinema placed on the left, and sitting on the right is the detective's office. And no complaints here. I think they transition pretty smoothly. Now I am noticing a trend. So most of the modulars sit closer to the street. Let's imagine there's a street here. Than the museum. So the museum has an offset away from the street more so than most of the modulars. So whatever you put next to it, it's showing this difference in depth, which I give kudos to the designer for doing that, offsetting it from the road to give that visual interest. So it's not just the colors, but the depth effects that separate these buildings to still be able to look at this cluttered street and be able to pinpoint, hey, that's the detective's office, that's the museum, that's the cinema. Whereas over here, I have an example of the opposite, whereas the bookshop and detective's office are sitting flush with one another. I switched things up, put the detective's office on the left, and now that Ace Brickman is in town, perhaps he can investigate who broke the pottery in the museum. On the right side, I've got the diner, but I feel in this configuration, a lot of details are hidden, because I like to see this side of the diner as well. It almost feels like a corner modular. The diner is now on the left, and to the right of it is the other big boy, the assembly square. I think it looks fine, but I don't think the downtown diner fits well with the museum. You need some separation. The backside of Assembly Square actually looks really good, besides the action feature here. Now, as for the sides, they don't look that good. So perhaps you don't want to leave too much space on the sides of Assembly Square and butt it up next to another building like this. Yeah, that does look better to hide some of that. Now to the right, I've got something that won't work. Yeah, the bookshop with the birch tree in the fall season next to the cherry blossom in the spring season. Yeah, let's change this up. This looks really good to me. So we've got the museum sandwiched between the bookshop and the townhouse, which are essentially part of the same set. They're just on half base plates, 16 by 32s. Oh yeah, you would need to move this lamppost as they're too closely spaced right here. Just move it over to the plate that has the bookshop on it. Now let's test a similar set which is the pet shop, I feel like this works as well. So we've got the pet shop to the left, the townhouse that comes with that same set on the right. Yeah, it looks good. Let's try the reverse. I think the reverse works just as well, besides the lampposts being close together, of course. If you see any doors open in this video, it's probably from Little Green Brick. He likes to come into my room sometimes and change things up, put people inside the doors. Well, anyway, I think this works because I would expect the museum to be in an old part of town. And these are certainly older styled buildings, so I just think it jives well. Now it's time to take this to another level. Let's add road plates. So I'm using these custom templates that I've created on 48 by 48 base plates with road plates attached. And that way we can have roads in the city and provide some separation between buildings. Now I think this separation between all three of these really bring out the best in all three. Like the diner was squished against the museum, either way you put it, but now it feels more open and you can see all the good parts of it that were hidden before. The museum, there's nothing to hide. It all looks good. So you want to be able to see the sides of it. Also the hotel, since I added a road plate in between the hotel and the museum, I was able to rotate it 90 degrees. Since it's a corner modular, you wouldn't normally be able to do that if they were butted up next to one another. I didn't do any modifications to the sets to achieve this arrangement. I just stuck them on top of these custom templates that I've built, and they work just fine. I'm doing this as an alternative to Mills. But you do get, this continuation of dark gray between the sidewalks and roads, and there's no separation. You could just simply add some tiles like I did on this side to give that separation if you don't want to recolor the entire sidewalk of every modular. I've removed the diner and replaced it with the cinema. Again, this is a corner modular building, so I was able to rotate it 90 degrees and make it work since there's road separation between the two buildings. The cinema has been replaced by the pet shop and townhouse. I think it looks good there. The hotel is in its same spot because I really like that arrangement right there. We just need to find the ideal arrangement for the right side. This is the alleyway and grass separation that I've talked about earlier in my video. It's on another one of my standard templates, and I'm going to use it in my city to provide more separation between more buildings. Okay, I found something that works for me, and it doesn't get much better than this. Check this out. So once again, we've got the pet shop and townhouse flanking both sides of the museum, the boutique hotel right across the street, with all the road plates, the flowers. I think it brings it all together. And I really like all of these buildings together right here because they're all earthy tones. They all look like old styled architecture that would fit into the same neighborhood. And who would have thought the pet shop from 2011 would go best with the museum from 2023? So that's my ideal arrangement right there. Well, what's next? I've got to experiment with all the other modulars and put my city together. Thanks for watching.